DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. Then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one daily masterclass, all under one umbrella that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, firing is not a bad thing. And the firing that I'm talking about here, I don't mean actual fire that can burn you, and I don't mean firing like shooting a gun. I mean firing as in getting fired from a job or being the one who is firing someone from a job. It is not necessarily a bad thing. Usually we think someone getting fired is a bad thing, but actually it can be a great thing. And that's what I want to talk about here today, just give you a different perspective on losing a job or removing someone from a job. Now, I've done my share of firing in the days. I don't have a ton of people working for me, but I've done my share of firing. I actually just, the day that I'm recording this, I just had to fire somebody today. I didn't have to. I chose to fire somebody here today. And it's often when you're doing it or you're the one receiving it, definitely, it can be very uncomfortable. I've been fired as well, too. I should mention that, too. I've been fired and I've done some firing. It is often uncomfortable in the moment to have to fire someone. And the firing that I'm talking about here today, too, does not necessarily have to be at a job. You could fire somebody if you're in a relationship and you break up with them, you fired them from the relationship. Or if somebody breaks up with you, they fired you from the relationship. Or any type of business partnership or anything that just doesn't go, it is working together with X number of people, and then somebody, you or someone else, decides that it ain't working anymore and now you're no longer in that situation. All of those can fit into the firing category. Firing, breakups, whatever you want to call it. It's often uncomfortable in the moment, usually, and there's one reason why a lot of people don't do it, and we're going to get into that. But it's for the best. In the long run, it is often for the best. Most of the time, every time actually, it's for the best. And today we're discussing why that is for all involved parties. Again, the person who got fired, broken up with, dumped, whatever you want to call it, and the person who did the firing, breaking up, dumping. Let's get into it. Point number one. Well, actually, before I get into point number one, let me remind you that I have a text line or tell you the first time. I got a text number. The number is 305-384-6894. If you hear something that really touches you here today, that is really impactful, I want to know what it is. What's the most impactful thing you got from today's episode? The thing that really makes you think and is really going to cause you to make some changes in the way that you think or the way that you act. Send me a text, 305-384-6894. All that said, let's get into it. Point number one. Again, firing is not a bad thing. Number one, people get fired because they don't belong where they are. Someone gets dumped from a relationship because they do not belong in that relationship anymore. Yes, the person who got fired does not belong in the relationship anymore. We're going to get to the person who's doing the firing. The person who got fired, you don't belong working at McDonald's anymore. That's why McDonald's fired you. All right, you don't belong dating this girl anymore. That's why the girl dumped you. All right, you don't belong in this business partnership anymore. That's why your partner bought you out and wants to get rid of you. You do not belong there anymore. Firing, when someone gets fired, if you ever been fired from a job, let me think, what job did I get fired from? I got fired from Friendly's, which is a restaurant. I was 16 years old, and I got fired because I just didn't want to, I couldn't stay past a certain time because I would have missed the last bus to get home, and the mall was like an hour away from where I lived, so it's not like I could have walked or anything like that. So I got fired because the manager distrusted me because I didn't stick around to the end of my shift like I was supposed to. So I understood why he fired me, but he should have understood why I left at the same time. But when they fired me, what were they doing? They were letting me go. They were literally letting me go. Letting me go do what? Whatever else I could have did in life other than work at Friendly's. When you fire somebody, you are literally letting them go so that they can find a place where they do belong. Because obviously they don't belong there. Because if they did, you wouldn't be firing their ass. You're firing them because they don't belong in this one place. Now the other infinite number of places that they could be in life, now they have the opportunity to go explore and maybe find a place where they should be. But they can never find that place as long as they're still connected to yours. As the saying goes, paraphrasing, you can't reach for the future if you're still holding on to the past. You can't reach for the next relationship if you're still holding on to the last relationship. So you gotta let people go sometimes so they can find a place where they should be. Plus, if you're the employer, or you're the person who dumped somebody out of a relationship, or you're the business partner who now it doesn't have a business partner, now you're a solo proprietor, you can't fill that spot with the right person until you get the wrong person out the damn way. You can't put the right people on the bus until you get the wrong people off the bus, as Jim Collins talked about in Good to Great, which is one of my favorite books. If you haven't read that book, it's a book that studies businesses and tries to find out and explores and finds out why do certain businesses really take off and do great while other businesses do not. And even though the concept of the book focuses specifically on publicly traded companies, the principles in the book apply to human beings, individual people as well. Even if you're not in the business world, you don't even consider yourself a business person or an entrepreneur, the book will still apply to you 95% of it. So go read that book. Again, it's called Good to Great. The author is Jim Collins. And one of the things he talks about is the concept of first who, then what. I like this concept so much that I did a whole episode on the concept. That was episode 1178, first who, then what. And the general premise of it, and you should listen to the whole episode so you understand the context behind it, is that you got to get the wrong people off the bus before you put the right people on the bus. And this is the concept of firing people. This is why when a new coach comes into a program, for example, specifically in college sports, a lot of times some of the incumbent players who would be on the team under normal circumstances are no longer on the team. They go transfer and find a new school to play for because the new coach wants to bring in some of their own people. They want to bring in new blood into the organization. When a new CEO comes into a company, a lot of times people who are working at the company already, they leave the company and go find different jobs, not because they're incapable of doing the job, but because the new CEO wants to bring in some of their own people to work with them, people that they already know, like, and trust. There are some people who will hold over from one regime to the next, but a lot of times there's a good amount of changeover. And this same thing happens in every aspect of life, that sometimes in life you just got to get rid of the wrong people first before you can bring the right people in. And one of the big challenges with this, the paradox of this for a lot of people in life, is that they don't want to get rid of those people who they know are not ideal. They might not even be wrong people, but they're just not ideal. I had to let go of a person who wasn't wrong. They weren't bad. They just weren't ideal. And I knew they weren't ideal. And then I'm looking at my notes for this very episode and say, okay, I got to follow my own damn advice. I got to get rid of this individual. And the challenge is, for a lot of people, they don't want to get rid of that non-ideal person because for a period, after you get rid of the non-ideal person, before you find the right person, now you have no people. Now it's just you. Now you're by yourself. Now you're single for a while. Now you don't have an employee to fill that role. Now you don't have a business partner. It's just you running everything. Now you have an empty space, an empty chair where that person used to sit. A lot of people are so afraid and uncomfortable with the discomfort of that moment, however long that moment lasts, that they will hold on to someone who is not ideal just so that they don't feel the abandonment that comes with letting go of someone who doesn't belong there. And I talked about this in the episode where I said, do not hold on to mediocrity for fear that you won't find better. This is episode number 1207. Do not settle for good enough out of fear that you won't find better. So these two episodes, first who, then what, then not settling, they're about 30 days apart. Episode 1178 and 1207, respectively. Get the wrong people out before you can get the right people in. You got to create space. You got to create a vacuum for the right people in your life. Point number 2, do not keep the wrong people around or stay around yourself as the wrong person out of fear that you're not going to get to that better person. I just touched on this in point number 1. So I stepped on this second point right here. All of us go through this in life. All of us have been in a situation. You tell me if you've been in this situation or not, where you were procrastinating about taking a certain action because you hadn't found a better option yet. Taking an action like, let me dump this guy or this girl because I know I don't want to be with them, but I don't want to dump them because then I'll be single and I'll be by myself. How many of you have stayed in a relationship too long because you didn't want to get rid of a person because you didn't want to be by yourself? Or because it was just very convenient to be with the person that you were with? Or because you knew you weren't going to stay with this person long term, but there was something they were providing in that relationship that you did like, and you didn't want to let go of that, so you just strung that thing along so you could keep getting that one benefit, but you knew long term this wasn't going to be the thing. How many of you have done that? Everybody who's listening to this has done this at some point. Maybe you did it in a relationship, maybe you did it at work, maybe you've done it maybe you did it as an employer, maybe you've done it as an employee. Stayed somewhere that you didn't belong, procrastinated on taking the action of separation because you hadn't found a better option yet. But understand something, life is too short for you to make this mistake too often. Because the time that you spend in that place that you don't belong, procrastinating to make a move, all right, that time you don't get back. So that 3 months, that 5 years, that 3 weeks, that 2 hours, you will never ever get that time back. Life is too short for you to make this mistake too often. You do not get a do-over. You must be willing to create the vacuum for what you want. And I discussed this in detail in episode number 850, creating vacuums for what you want in life. What does that mean? It means you must create the empty space for what you want. If you're in a relationship right now and you know this is not the ideal relationship, you must be willing to be single for a little while so you can find the ideal relationship. You can't stay in a relationship you shouldn't be in and then say, all right, let me go find the ideal person. All right, they look like they'll be ideal. All right, let me dump this person today and then hopefully I can start dating a new person tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. I don't know too many people who've done that successfully. You got to be willing to create the vacuum, the empty space, so you can get the thing that you want. You can't find the right person or the right opportunity in life while you're still holding on to the wrong person or the wrong opportunity in life. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is firing, breaking up, getting rid of people is not a bad thing. If you are the boss, if you are the person who's in charge, if you're the person who gets to call the shot as to whether or not this is going to go or it's not, understand something. And let me be clear, when I say the boss, doesn't necessarily mean the owner of a company. If you're in a relationship, you're the boss of your life. All right, you're the CEO of your life no matter what you do. If you're flipping burgers at McDonald's, you're still the CEO of your own life. You get to decide whether you're going to keep working there or not. All right, even though they're the employer and they're writing the check, you don't have to work there. I mean, it's not your legal obligation. You can leave if you want to. So you are the CEO and the boss no matter what role you hold, no matter how much money you're making, no matter how you see yourself. You are the CEO and boss of your own life at the end of the day, no matter what. So with that being said, remember what your ultimate affiliation is to. Your ultimate affiliation is not to a job. Your ultimate affiliation is not to necessarily to another person. If we keeping it real here, your ultimate affiliation is to the people that you serve. If you run a business, your ultimate affiliation are to the people, your clients and your customers, the people who are helping your business to go by exchanging their money for your products and services. Not your ultimate affiliation is not necessarily to the employee. Now, there are times where it is, depending on the context of the situation, but ultimately everyone who works at a company, our job is to serve the people that we serve at the highest possible level. And if there's someone in that company who is hindering us from serving the people that we serve at the highest level, they got to go. Why? Because they're hindering our ultimate affiliation. So they got to go. We got to get rid of them. Or we got to fix them or get them the help that they need. But if they keep getting in the way, they got to go. Why? Because we got to remember what our mission is. We serve people. That's our number one thing. You as an individual person, if you're at a job that's making you miserable and you're like, well, maybe I got to just stay at the job because of this and this and this, and you gave yourself all these rationalizations for why you need to stay at a job. Remember what your ultimate affiliation is to your own life. Your ultimate affiliation is to your personal happiness and your personal satisfaction and making sure you feel personally fulfilled. And if the job is not doing that, listen, you can find another job. It's not the only job in the world. And I'm not telling you to just go randomly, recklessly, just quit a job just because you're having a bad day. But remember what your ultimate affiliation is to. Now, maybe it take you a little bit of time to figure out what the process is going to be, how you're going to do it. But your ultimate affiliation is to yourself and how you can fulfill yourself. Don't fool yourself into thinking that your affiliation is to a certain job title or even to a certain employee or to a certain individual person just because you've been around them for so long or you've been doing this for a certain amount of time or because they are trying to make you feel like you owe them some level of loyalty and affiliation. You may be loyal to them. You may find yourself affiliated with them, but they're not the ultimate affiliation. When push comes to shove, there needs to be a hierarchy. We need to know who's number one, who's number two, who's number three, or what's number one, number two, number three. Everybody ain't tied. All right, they don't build statues for committees. All right, there needs to be a leader. Every boss, every organization must have a boss. Malcolm X said this in his autobiography. Who is the boss of your organization? You look at your life as a CEO. What's the number one priority? What's number two? What's number three? What's number four? There needs to be a hierarchy. So just in case number two and number three come into a clash, you know which one is more important. Therefore, it's easy to make a decision. But if you don't have that hierarchy, how are you going to make a decision? Well, you won't. You'll be stuck in the paralysis of analysis trying to figure out what to do. Anyone who is not the optimal person in your organization to help you reach your ideal affiliation, you got to fix them or they got to go. That's the oath that you take when you start a business, for example, that we serve these people this way. If this employee is hindering us from serving these people this way, we either will help them get the help they need so they can start helping us, or if we can't, or we don't want to, we get rid of them. We can't help them, we don't want to help them, we get rid of them and replace them with somebody else. Get them the hell out of the way so we can fulfill our purpose and fulfill the purpose of our business. That is what we owe to the people that we serve. When you open your business and you take somebody's money, that's the oath that you take. Is an unspoken contract. If you don't fulfill that contract, you'll find yourself out of business. That's the game that you're in. Point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is firing, breaking up, dumping, getting rid of is not necessarily a bad thing. It serves all parties, and actually in a positive way, depending on the angle from which you look at it. And today I'm giving you those angles so you understand this. Number 4, all of the above applies just the same for when you're in a job and you need to fire the job, as I explained at the top of this episode. So just because you work at a company and you're an hourly employee or you're a salaried employee, listen, you can fire the job just as easily as the job can fire you. All right, you don't have a legal obligation to keep working at a job. I think the only one where maybe you might be legally obligated is maybe in the military. But other than that, I don't know. I don't think any other job you have to keep working there. I mean, you can quit anytime that you want. Now, they might not have to pay you anymore. They might be able to get your signing bonus back or something like that. But you are not legally obligated to keep working anywhere that you don't want to be. So you have the right to fire a job just as much as the job has the right to fire you. Why? Life and careers, ladies and gentlemen, are too short to invest time, energy, attention, and focus to a place in which you do not belong. When you know you're in the wrong place, it is your responsibility to get out of that seat and go and sit in a different seat, or get out of that room and go find yourself a different room, or get out of that place and maybe you need to wander a little bit so you can find a place that is for you, but you know it ain't this place, then it's your job to get the hell out of that place. When you're in the wrong place, get out of there. You will find the right place, but you can't find it if you keep sitting in the wrong place. Again, this is the biggest fear that people have. Well, I don't want to leave this place because I don't know what the next place is going to be. Well, hey, if that is your rationale, you'll stay in the same place, the wrong place your entire life and never know. So which discomfort do you want to deal with? Which flavor of shit sandwich do you want to eat? We talked about this in episode 1663. Anything you do in life is going to come with a shit sandwich. If you hire people, there's a shit sandwich of having to deal with them. You fire people, there's a shit sandwich of getting rid of them. You have nobody around you, there's a shit sandwich of being by yourself. You got a bunch of people around you, there's a shit sandwich of having to manage those mofos. So you're going to have to deal with some shit no matter what you do in life. The question is, which flavor of shit do you want to eat? Because you're going to have to eat something, and it's not going to be perfect in any situation. So all that said, let's recap today's topic, which is firing is not necessarily a bad thing. You get rid of somebody, push somebody out, excommunicate someone, dump someone, break up with someone, dissolve a partnership, not necessarily a bad thing, and I'm going to tell you why. Point number 1, somebody gets fired because they do not belong where they are. That's just the way that it works in life. Firing is literally letting someone go so they can find out where they should be. They're no longer going to be in this place. Here's where they do belong. Plus, you can't fill their spot with the right person until you get the wrong person out of the damn way. As Jim Collins talked about in Good to Great, is first who, then what? Episode 1178, review that. Point number 2, do not keep the wrong people around or allow yourself to be kept around out of fear that you won't find a better place. Episode 1207, don't settle for good enough out of fear that you won't find better. All of us go through this, but understand life is too short to hold on to the wrong things. Create a vacuum for what you want, as we talked about in episode 850. Empty space is a vacuum. You can't find the right person or the right opportunity while you're holding on to the wrong person or the wrong opportunity. And number 3, if you're the person in charge, which you are in your own life, you are always the CEO. Your ultimate affiliation is to yourself or to your business or to whatever the number 1 highest ranking thing is in your life that matters the most. What is your number 1 priority? That is the thing that you need that's the boss. So anytime push comes to shove and their ideals are in clashing, you got to look at your hierarchy. What's the most important thing? And that's how you make your decisions. If you have a hierarchy, decision making will be very easy. When you don't have one, decision making is impossible. And number 4, all the above applies whether you're the CEO, the boss, the owner, or you're an employee, you're a freelancer, you're a mercenary. You still have to decide whether you belong in a place or you don't. And when you decide or come to the conclusion that you are in the wrong place, it is your job to get the hell up and get the hell out of there. You do not owe it to anyone to be loyal to them when you know you're in the wrong place for your life. You are the CEO of your life. Nobody else is the CEO of it. You make the ultimate decision. All this said, I want you to send me a text and tell me what's the most valuable thing you got from today's episode. My number is 305-384-6894. What's the most valuable thing, the best thing, the thing that you're most going to apply, and tell me how you're going to apply it. 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.